Starting this video right now is truly such a pinch me moment for me because I got an arc of Katherine Center's new book, The Love Haters, and I'm so excited about this. So, when I started getting back into reading as an adult a couple of years ago, Katherine Center was one of the first authors that I really picked up and fell in love with and just really enjoyed her writing and the depth that she puts into her stories and the romances and just everything about her writing. And so to have this book in my hands, I am truly just so honored and so excited to start it. So all I really know about this book is that it's very summery. It takes place in Key West. I think the male main character is some kind of swimmer, Coast Guard kind of situation maybe, and there's a brother that the female main character works with or something like that. I really like to go in blind, so that's all I really remember from reading the synopsis like months ago. So once I get started reading and I get my bearings and have read a few chapters, I will share with you guys a more proper synopsis of kind of what's going on and where the story starts. Like I said, I'm so excited. It's currently early May and this book comes out on May 20th. So you're probably watching this video around that time. And I'm just so again excited and honored that I get to read this early and share my thoughts with you guys. So let's just go ahead and get to reading. I just read the first two chapters of The Love Haters, so I thought I would give you a more proper synopsis now. So in the very first chapter, we meet Cole and Katie. And Cole and Katie are co-workers at this like video production company, like basically a company that people would hire to make like promo videos, ads, anything like that. So they work together and the company's kind of in trouble. People are in danger of losing their jobs. And so Cole gives Katie this opportunity to basically go do this like profile thing on a Coast Guard rescue swimmer in Key West. And so she accepts, and she also finds out that this heroic guy that she's doing the profile on is Cole, her coworker's brother, Hutch. So that's kind of where we are right now, getting ready to go to Key West. I will say that just in the first and second chapter, I can see that like body image and things like that will be probably a theme in this book. So I also just wanted to mention that in case that's something that maybe in this season is a trigger for you or anything like that. But so far, I love it. I love Katherine Center. I'm very excited to continue reading the story. I'm now 33% through The Love Haters, so I'm on chapter 9, and I'm really enjoying it so far. It definitely has a very summery feel, I would say, especially being in Key West. Like, I can just feel the summer vibes. There's actually a specific scene towards the beginning of this book where they're like at a pool that reminds me, what I'm picturing in my head for this scene is like High School Musical 2, Sharpay, and them laying by the pool when she falls in, like that kind of vibe. So that's kind of fun. We're just now kind of getting into the part where they're going to be working on the actual like film they have to make, and she's going to be doing interviews. They're going to be in the helicopters and out on the water and all of that, which I think will be really fun and interesting to learn about the Coast Guard and what they actually do, because I really didn't know, like the female main character in the book is kind of like they guard the coast, and that's kind of how I feel like I don't completely know. And so I think it's gonna be fun to learn that through her eyes, because I feel like since she doesn't really know about it, there'll probably be some teaching and some learning involved. I did also want to mention, I know I already mentioned that like the body image kind of thing was pretty prevalent in this book, and it has stayed very prevalent, I would say, like front of mind throughout the chapters that I've been reading. So I almost wonder if she is doing this on purpose, where she is like constantly bringing the body image, the diet, the wearing a swimsuit, all of these kind of issues to mind, so that we as the reader almost experience what the character is experiencing, of like just the constant triggers and reminders and thinking about something. And yeah, I don't know exactly what she's struggling with, but even like with anxiety, I feel like is similar, where it just feels like you like can't shake it and it's constantly in your head. And I wonder if the way that she's writing this in the book is kind of meant to mirror or mimic how that would feel if we were Katie. So yeah, I don't know if that's intentional on her part or if that is what she's doing. I feel like maybe it would become more clear as I continue to read, but I wonder, because that's kind of how it feels, is that it's just being brought up over and over again so that we feel maybe just a sliver of what she's feeling. So I'm really enjoying it so far. Like I said, I'm about a third of the way through, and I am excited to keep reading and see where we go next. Update. Happy Saturday. I am now, let me check, waking up 57% through The Love Haters by Katherine Center, and I feel like I have a lot to update you guys on, because last time we talked, I think I was around the 30-something% mark, and I feel like after that update, things really picked up. I feel like before that, we were really laying the groundwork for the story, and the last third or so of the book has been a lot more of like the romance, the plot, everything has really picked up, and I've really been enjoying it. I will say too, like I might have predicted earlier, we are getting to learn some about the Coast Guard, which I think is really fun. Like she talked about how they work with different crews, so everything is like standardized with procedures, because you might be with a different pilot or a different rescue swimmer or a different whoever on every flight. She had to do this like crazy training to learn how to like swim out of the water if the helicopter crashed, all of those things. So I feel like that's been really interesting to learn. They actually like went on a rescue mission and we got to kind of follow that. So yeah, that's been really interesting and fun to learn. I feel like Katherine Center definitely did some research on the Coast Guard for this book, which I think would be such a fun part of being an author, is like getting to research places and jobs and topics and just like immerse yourself into those so that you can write really believable characters. I think that would be so fun. Also, he lives on a houseboat in this book, which I think is just so fun. And all I can picture, I feel like this book is very fun to picture because, like I said, it's very summery, very beachy. But with the houseboat thing, if you've ever watched Heart of Dixie, which if you like clean, wholesome shows, Southern shows, anything like that, you should watch Heart of Dixie. One of the main characters in that show lives on a houseboat for a period of time, and that's like what I'm picturing. And I think it's just fun. I will say with the romance, I feel like we gained steam really, really fast and then threw on the brakes for a second, and I'm not completely sure exactly what happened or what's going on. There's some kind of situation between the brothers, which we learn in the first chapter, because that's why Cole doesn't want to take this assignment with his brother and he gets Katie to do it. But we don't know exactly what that is, so I'm assuming that's something that will kind of unfold as we keep reading. But that did kind of throw me off a little bit because it's not like a third act breakup. It's the middle of the book, and it's not a breakup either, but it's just kind of pumping the brakes a little bit. So I'm excited to kind of see how that continues to pick up and what's the situation between the brothers as well. And then I know I mentioned early on that body image was kind of a theme in this book, but another major theme in this book, I feel like, which as most of Katherine Center's books do, they have an underlying lesson or it's theme, something that she's really the characters learning, and then as you're reading you can also kind of learn yourself. And in this book I feel like it's fear, and so I saved a few quotes, I think. Let's see. It says, "A funny feeling in my chest seems to be holding me frozen. What's the feeling? I think it's fear. Exciting news. I found a definite cure for swimsuit phobia, sheer terror of something else." Which I think is true about all fear in our life. It's you're afraid of something small until you're afraid of something big, and then it's all your small fears or worries go away. And then there's another scene where basically something that she's been so afraid of and building up in her head, when it actually happens, it's like nothing like she imagined it to be, and it's not a big deal at all, and it was nothing to be afraid of. And like, how often is that true in all of our lives, where like we build something up to be this like huge deal and we're so afraid of it, and then you do it and you're like, that was nothing. Why was I being so dramatic? So I think that was really relatable. There's also a quote here where she said, had you forgotten that I'd have to do that before this flight? Because I hadn't. In acting or whatever, like if you've done theater, I think that's called like breaking the fourth wall, where it's like you are acknowledging and like speaking to the audience, which normally you don't do in like a book, a play, anything like that. So I thought that was kind of funny that she was like, had you forgotten about that? Because guess what? I hadn't. And I think that kind of plays into what I was talking about a day or two ago about like, I think that she is purposefully like bringing things up, or maybe not bringing things up and then bringing them up again to be like, oh, maybe you forgot about it, I haven't forgotten about it, to try to help us understand what she's feeling and kind of experience some of those emotions and like recurring thoughts and things. So I see you, Katherine Center. I think you're doing that on purpose. But yeah, it's been really fun. I love learning about the Coast Guard. I think that the fear theme is really something that I can relate to, and I'm sure a lot of people can, and so that's been really interesting to read about, and I'm just excited to keep reading and kind of see where the story goes. Like I said, now that it's really picked up and I feel like I'm really in the throes of the story, I didn't want to put it down last night, but I had to go to sleep. So I'm really excited to continue. I will keep you guys updated with what I'm thinking, what I'm reading, and talk to you guys when I talk to you. I am now 75% through The Love Haters, and I think I said earlier, the first third was very like laying the background, what's going on, meet our characters. Then the middle was kind of like the romance was really picking up. There was some conflict starting. This last like 20 or 30% or so has been pure like calm and rom-com. Like it's just been so like many bizarre things happening and like confusion, but like funny things. And yeah, I've just really been enjoying like the last few chapters of just chaos and things happening, and yeah, it's been really fun. I feel like we've also really hit some of the more like emotional parts of the story, which Katherine Center always has in terms of like adding to the characters' stories and kind of giving us their background of maybe why they are the way they are, or what's going on between characters or things like that. That aspect of the story has really tugged at my heartstrings. I feel like it's really a story of like forgiveness and love, and it's just really, really heartwarming and sweet and inspiring. And so that's been a really fun part of the story as well. So I guess overall this update is just me saying that I'm really loving this story. I feel like the last chunk that I've read since I talked to you guys has really solidified that, of like I've really connected more with these characters and the romance, and yeah, I'm just excited to see kind of how a bunch of this stuff unravels, because right now I feel like the characters have all just like tied themselves into a knot of just lies and silly things going on and expectations, and it's just like, how is this all going to get sorted back out so that everybody can be where they need to be with who they need to be with, all of the things. So that's been really, really fun. I haven't read since, I guess I read a tiny bit last night, but I really haven't gotten to read a ton since Friday. It's now Sunday night. So I have been thinking about this book and these characters and what's going to happen while I haven't been reading, which I feel like is a really good sign of a great book that you're enjoying, is that, yeah, I've been thinking about it. I've been wanting to sit down and read. And so I'm finally going to get to do a little bit of that again tonight. And I am very happy about that because, like I said, I'm at the 75% mark. So I feel like I could definitely finish this tonight, but I don't know if I want to. But I could also finish it tomorrow, like once I get home from work. So we'll see what I end up doing. But of course, I will keep you guys updated. I have officially finished The Love Haters by Katherine Center. I talked to you guys last night, and then I intended to just read for a few minutes, film a few clips, and then go wind down for the night, maybe read another chapter or two in bed, but mostly be done reading. And I started reading around, I think the 75% mark is where I was. And once you read the book, when you get to that point, you'll see like I got to a point where I just couldn't put it down. It was like I had to know what happened. And so I ended up finishing the book last night. I have so many thoughts about the book. So I'm going to try to put them in some kind of cohesive order so that they kind of flow. But the first thing I wanted to say is that it was the perfect summery book, like top recommendation for summer. I feel like the setting and the plot and everything just feels right for the summertime. And I loved the Key West beachy vibe in the story. I could also just picture the setting, the cottages, the beach, the bike rides, the sunsets, like everything. I feel like she didn't overly describe it, but just the way that it felt almost is what I could like picture and feel, like the cozy summer feeling. And it was just so perfect. This would be such a perfect one for the beach or the pool. And again, just perfect for the summertime. I also, like I've said throughout this video, thought it was so interesting to read a little bit and learn about the Coast Guard. It's definitely not like overdone if you're like, I don't really care that much, but it is interesting just as we go along learning a little bit about that. I think that was really fun that she kind of sprinkled that into this story. And as it relates to like themes, I love the way that Katherine Center can weave more deep, emotional, thought-provoking, hard sometimes topics and themes into a very lighthearted, still very much rom-com. Like she definitely put the com in this rom-com, but it also still had themes like fear and like the body image thing that she was dealing with and like relationships, forgiveness. Like there were so many hard things that characters dealt with and that therefore we kind of grappled with as readers as well and kind of examined in ourselves as we watched these characters go through things, but it also was still very lighthearted and fun, which I just love the way that Katherine Center does that because I feel like it's just a recipe for a perfect book. And I also wanted to mention the author's note at the end. If you read this book, I highly recommend reading the author's note at the very end of the story. It was just so interesting to read Katherine Center's thoughts about why she wrote this book, why she included some of the themes that she did. And overall, she talked a lot about just like how she writes and kind of what I was talking about balancing the hard with the comedy and things like that. And I feel like this quote sums up why I love Katherine Center's books. Like if I could review her books with her words from this quote, I would. And it says, I've wanted to understand how to harness them for good. Them as in stories. How to tell stories that are page-turning and compelling, but also wise and helpful. How to lift us all up, myself included, and help us make the very best of every minute we have. And that's really how I feel about her books, that they're like page-turning and compelling, but also wise and helpful and like lift you up and inspire you to be a better version of yourself, to make the best of every minute, like she says. And so I feel like that was just a perfect way to kind of review her book. I will say also, I feel like if you've read some of her previous work, her more backlist, like What You Wish For, Happiness for Beginners, even Hello Stranger, I feel like those all lean a little bit more women's fiction with romance. And I feel like she really walks that line well, similar to like Annabelle Monaghan, Emily Henry, people like that. But then her more recent releases like The Bodyguard, the rom-comers last year, and this one, I feel like she's leaned at least a little bit more into the romance, especially The Bodyguard, which I loved. Felt very heavy on the romance and a little bit lighter on the women's fiction. I feel like this one almost went back a tiny bit to where it was like the perfect balance, almost like half and half of like, we really focused on Katie's story and also the romance. And yeah, I thought that it was just a really good balance, which is also something that I just love about Katherine Center and the stories that she writes. And before I go, I also wanted to just share a couple of spice and language notes about the book. So I'll start with spice. This book basically has no spice. There's not even like closed door, I would say. Like there's no time that they imply that something's about to happen and they just fade to black or close the door. Like it's clean. There's nothing like that in it. So I would say this book isn't even closed door. It's just like no spice. Nothing's happening there. But I will say there is a fair amount of ogling and noticing of like his muscles or his body or whatever. I mean, they're at the beach. He's a Coast Guard swimmer. She's dealing with her body image, swimsuit stuff. So I do feel like that is a little bit more prevalent in this story than maybe some of Katherine Center's other books. So I just wanted to note that because I know some people don't love that, but as far as spice goes, there is none in this book. And then for language, Katherine Center does use some language in her books, but I do feel like this one was very, very mild. I think some of her earlier work maybe had a little bit more. I didn't count, but my guess would be like 5 to 10 words, and they were all like pretty mild, I would say. One a little bit stronger, but like I would say this is like infrequent, mild language is kind of how I would describe it. So unless you just don't read books that have language at all, I think you would be fine to pick this one up. It wasn't like every page or every sentence where it was like really hard to read. It was very occasional. So with all of that being said, I think I'm going to give this book a 4.25 stars. I'm between a 4.25 and a 4.5. If I bump it up, I'll let you know when I'm editing, but I think that's what I'm going to land on. I feel like the only reason it's not a 4.5 or a 4.75 is because, one, I feel like the struggles that these characters had, while I did relate to them, I don't feel like I related to them as much as sometimes I've related to other characters in other books, just with like my personal life, I guess, if that makes sense. So I feel like that was part of it. And also, I kind of just wanted more of the story. Like I felt like it was short. It wasn't. It was over 300 pages, which is very typical for a romance book, but I wanted more of the romance. I wanted more of the story in general. And so, yeah, that's where I'm going to land on my rating. And if you've made it this far, thank you guys so, so much for watching this reading vlog. Again, I am so thankful that I got this arc and got to read it and share it with you guys. I hope you go pick up The Love Haters and read it by the beach or by the pool. And let me know down in the comments what you think of it, if you're planning on picking it up, all of the things. I would love to hear your thoughts. And as always, thank you guys so, so much for watching. Take care, friends.